Megan Slavin with 25 North Coworking. I am the COO and partner of 25 North. The challenges that we had before Yardi Cube was certainly we were manual. We were doing a lot of things on spreadsheets. We were doing a lot of things on QB Online. But I think what a software like Yardi Cube does is it opens up a lot more possibilities. So we are able to run our company a lot more efficiently, smoothly, and we have a lot of data at our fingertips that we didn't have before. I would say the best thing is I can see exactly where my company is at on any given time, any given day. Our return on investment with Yardi Cube has been immense. Yardi Cube listens to the industry, they listen to their partners, and because of that, we know that they're going to take good care of us and they're going to make our growth a lot easier.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Realcomm Live. I got to tell you, things are getting a little exciting around here. We're getting ready to head to Savannah shortly for Realcomm and IBCon 2025. Hundreds of topics, big topics, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, the future of work, which is what we're going to be talking about today with two extraordinary guests. But before I bring them on, I got to tell you, I've probably done a couple hundred episodes of Realcomm Live and lots of different topics. This one is near and dear to my heart, and I am so excited to have these two guys on today. The reason it's near and dear to my heart, because somewhere in the mid 80s, my boss walked into my office, handed me a laptop computer, which were kind of new at the time, and said, we're closing your Culver City office and you're going to work out of your house. And I accused him of trying to destroy the company, and I had no idea what he was talking about, and the rest is history. And for the last, 25, 30 years, Realcomm has been following the co-working topic. We've come up with an infographic that kind of describes the history of that movement all the way from the mid 80s, all the way up. And this was done in 2018, so we haven't updated it for the pandemic. But you can see the first time I saw major corporations taking this mobile worker serious was 1988, when Deloitte sent all their workers home in the South Bay and created a co-working space. Accenture jumped in probably about 5-10 years later. Regis is founded. A couple other experiments in between their tech space, CBRE Phoenix office, and then take it all the way up to the 2008, 2010 timeframe when WeWork got started, and then take it all the way up to the pandemic where the entire world had to participate in a work from home, play from home, watch movies from home experience. And then here we are today at this conversation. And it's a perfect segue into me bringing on our two guests, Jason Anderson, president of Vast Coworking, and Will Sandford, the director of coworking at Yardi. Guys, so good to have you here. And we've been doing had a couple conversations prepping for this. And I joke that this call or this podcast can go 2 hours if we're not careful, because there is a lot to unpack. Right? So first of all, nice to have you here, and I'm really excited about this conversation. So let's start with a brief background. I always like to give people context, right? Who is Jason? Who is Will? Where they come from? Why are they speaking today? So if you guys can each take 2-3 minutes, give us a little bit of your background as it relates to the conversation we're going to have.
Jason, go for it.
Sure. So thanks, Jim. I am Jason Anderson, the president of Vast Coworking. Born in upstate New York, I joined the military at 17, active duty on 9/11. That turned, my idea and thought of spending 20 years in the service to a 5-year enlistment term. Started using my VA loan to buy and flip houses right out of the military and got into real estate early on. And I actually opened up my real estate company from a Regis in Dallas, Highland Park Village to be specific. So I became an early adopter into flexible office space. Had a chance to build and grow that business into a franchise and ultimately sold that company And then I got into the world of franchising with my partner, mentor Ray Titus, who started the company Sinorama back in the 1980s. In 2015, we launched a company called Accurate Franchising that helps businesses become a franchise. And one of those concepts that came to us was Venture X, which is one of our current co working brands underneath Vast. Had the crazy idea as well in that time that we could build the Marriott of co working, having multiple brands underneath one umbrella. We had the opportunity to acquire Office Evolution, which was our reintroduction to the Yardi team. We had met them earlier on, and then we acquired Intelligent Office. So today I serve as the president of Vast Co-working, which is three brands: VentureX, Office Evolution, and Intelligent Office. We have roughly 210 locations across 9 countries. And depending upon, I think, the day of the week, we are the second or third largest co-working group in North America by number of locations. A lot of other companies may have us beat by square footage, by actual open locations, though. We sit someplace in the top two or three. So
Very good.
that's a bit of my background. I'll pass it over to Will.
You got co-working in your DNA.
I love it. Yeah.
Very good. Will, how about you?
Well, I love hearing Jason's story because you're obviously an opportunist and an innovator, and it's like kind of cool to see that arc. But myself, I was a real estate investment banker, mostly on the debt and underwriting side, and my first touch with flexible office came when I was underwriting, major market, large trophy and Class A office buildings, and this was around 2010 when co-working started to pop up in these assets. And one of my clearest memories is going down to the S&P offices on Wall Street and saying, all right, how does the underwriting model account for co-working? And they dusted off their 2006, 2007 underwriting model and said, it doesn't. And that kind of just started this thought pattern of like, how are we going to account? What is this going to become? Fast forward, I got an opportunity as an underwriter to come across and work for WeWork, right, as they were really starting to hyperscale. So I ran their underwriting team for the West Coast, primarily working with their largest occupiers, the tenants coming into their spaces, and helping structure large deals for them. And in that, really learned strategically what importance does flexible office and flexible options play within their corporate real estate portfolio. So really got into the weeds of it with their heads of real estate, their CFOs, their COOs around like, what is this now and what role does it play in your organization going forward? Through that, it kind of came to the forefront that, this is not just a problem that WeWork can solve. This is an industry challenge, kind of putting my old investment banker hat on. Like, how do we get this into enough buildings so that it's statistically meaningful to all these corporates who need that space? So, around that time with WeWork liking to call itself a tech company, I actually jumped ship into a prop tech in the Bay Area that was focused on this challenge. That didn't work out, as a lot of prop techs don't, but that same seed of this is what co-working can become with the right technology backing kind of still flourished. So I frankly knocked on Yardi's door and said, you work with, I know you work with WeWork as a technology provider. I know you work with 50% of the commercial office owners in this country. This is your challenge to solve. And I remember calling up Rob Teal, our global president, out of the blue, gave him that spiel. And he said, yeah, we have the same feeling. Come on board with Yardi. Wow. And then 4 weeks after I joined, Arnott shot me an email and said, we bought WeWork. You want to go back there? Tongue in cheek at the time, I said, I'm good. I want to work for Yardi. But, coming full circle, like Yardi very much believes that it's their responsibility and opportunity to kind of be the custodian for what flexible office and co-working becomes and bring that into the mainstream in commercial office. So that's where I'm at today. I'm the director of co-working, so I sit across a bunch of initiatives here to make that, I guess, vision a reality.
DNA or co-working in your DNA as well. So here's a question for, just to clarify for the audience. Work from home, work from coffee shop, WeWork, flex office space inside corporate facilities, hot desking. I mean, there's all sorts of different iterations. What is your definition of co-working? Jason?
Well, I think I told you, Jim, I'm not creative enough to try to make something up. I think that the definition of co-working is the traditional definition, which is I'm actually going to read it. Then I'll give you what I think it's supposed to mean. So Oxford's definition is the use of an office or other working environment by people who are self-employed or working for different employers, typically so as they share equipment, ideas, and knowledge. I think that was the original intent of what co-working was being developed as, and really we work at the forefront of that.
It was
But I don't
that
think
was Adam's vision, kind of.
that was Adam's vision, but I don't think that was Mark Dixon's vision, right? Regis was more, it's a private, flexible office space. So I look at really co-working just be an industry placeholder term for what it's become, because two of my brands really don't have or have very limited co-working in that sense. We focus on private, flexible office spaces for individuals, businesses, small, medium of enterprise kind of sentiment. So I think the forward moving term co-working is going to be, like I said, the key word you want to be found for if you own a flexible office space, because that's what people search for, right? But it's a broad definition of the industry. I think some of the other ones you said are pretty straightforward. Work from home, right, is pretty straightforward. But I think co-working is just a placeholder name for all the things that are to come from flexible office space.
And a little bit off the subject, but on the work from home, what percentage of home builders have figured out how to build a home office in the correct location, proximity to the front door, not dragging people through the house, access to an outside entrance? I mean, how many home builders have figured out what a home office should look like, in your
Well,
opinion?
I'll take my co-working hat off and take my residential real estate kind of development hat on. Home builders have figured out how not to figure it out. What I mean by that is they build spaces differently today than they did 20 years ago. Meaning, if you walked into a house 20 years ago, you're going to have this big open room that nobody uses today, right? Kind of this family living area. Most
Right.
houses or apartments you walk into now, they build a space for you to put a desk or turn that into your own kind of coffee shop. The real people that have figured it out is the custom cabinet people, and Pottery Barn that are, quadrupling their prices on their pre-built desk and flat pack things that they have. But
Yeah.
I think you have real estate developers, we're working with them, that are trying to bolt on, and they figured out they could bolt on co-working spaces to
I
multifamily.
still think there's a lot of room, both in the condo and the single family home marketplace. Anytime there's a new development here in Southern California, I jump into one of these houses, half a million, anywhere from three-quarters of a million to $2 million, and many of them, I'm starting to see some better designs,
Mhm.
but a lot of them are still not understanding that, yeah, it's not just the 70-year-old sitting in his office looking at his stock portfolio. Maybe you're going to have meetings there. Maybe you're going to have two or three people there. How fast can you get to the kitchen to be able to bring some food, to your meeting? So I'd give them maybe a C plus at this point, from my vantage point, but interesting to hear yours. Will, what is your current state of co-working?
So I'll answer the definition part first, and I think Jason nailed it, right? It's the known SEO search term. It's what you're going to put your dollars behind if you want to be found. But you might not actually offer traditionally what is known as co-working. Like what it is relevant to the customer it serves, and 5-7 years ago, that was the person who wanted to not go to the coffee shop, not be at home, and they wanted reliable Wi-Fi and a quiet place to sit. But you know, as we meaningfully see corporates coming into this space, and we really believe that corporates are reallocating parts of their footprint into flexible products, co-working being one of them, what that product is changing. And I think co-working, like we said, is like the known term, but it sits within this broader world of flexible office. And I think some of those things don't look like co-working. They are, flexibly leased solutions for corporates. They are private suites, which might not have an open area with free coffee. It covers all manner of spaces. I think co-work is the known one, but it fits into this broader realm of flexible office. And I think defining that in this new world of corporate use of flexible space is going to be something that, frankly, our industry needs to mature and define. Yeah. Does that answer the
No, go
question?
ahead. Finish your thought.
I was going to say that, that kind of leads me to like, how do we see the industry today? And, we track the industry very closely, and we see the US co-working industry loosely defined, right? Some of these are flexible use industrial spaces. Some of them are flexible use therapy and medical spaces, right? It all falls under this umbrella. But we track the market closely and we see 7,500 odd co-working or flexible locations in the US. But the granularity of that market and the niche uses are growing. So to say it's one thing is becoming increasingly difficult.
Yeah, it's morphing every single day still. I mean, and at the end of the day, is it really about getting better utilization out of the 100 square feet or whatever, measurement you're using? Is it really about if you drive up utilization, your returns on that investment are going to be better? Is that the basic financial goal?
I mean, throw that to Jason. He's the one trying to
Yeah,
drive the dollars
well,
up
I'll
the
tell you,
screen.
Will's the investment banker, and he has probably a much more sophisticated market way of explaining that. Like we're on, Squawk Box in the morning. My sentiment would be is, who does a better job of monetizing the hotel room? Regular hotel or an all inclusive, right? In this methodology, we're just an all inclusive hotel, right? So we're monetizing the Wi-Fi, the seats, the chairs, everything kind of in and out of the space. And it's very easy to see our revenue per square foot versus what the landlord's asking per square foot to lease it to us, right? So, our locations are double, triple, in some instances, 7, 8, 10x above what the retail rate of that space is. So, not hypothetically, I could show you, if there's a market where, you're getting a space for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, you just put the placeholder on there, you throw on co-working on top of that, right, as flexible, that number should be extremely higher. That is the entire business model, right? So WeWork, Regis, when they were leasing properties, all they were doing is rental arbitrage, right? You get it at X amount and then you lease it at Y, right? It's no different than Airbnb. So yes, it's the highest and best use of most office space. As you bolt on additional services onto that, again, you could 3x, 4x, 5x, 6x, 7x, 10x the going retail
What
price.
became evident over the years was that a 5-day work week with now more mobile employees working 8 to 5, that on a 7-day 24-hour a day work week, the utilization was sub 10%, and yet your insurance and your air conditioning and your heating, those went 24 hours a day 7 days a week, right? And when you looked at the basic office financial structure, it didn't pencil anymore. And I think the pandemic just threw oil on that fire. Let's hear a brief word from Yardi, our sponsor, and we'll come back and we're going to talk about the current state of the market, and then also what is the future.
Most fantastic things about Yardi is its scalability. Each time we've added a new site, getting a new one set up and transferring the chart of accounts and all of the information from our existing sites just makes the opening very simple and easy for our entire management team. We chose Yardi Cube primarily because the Office Evolution team was using it already. Our VentureX team was using another system, and we decided that Yardi was the best for our overall solution just because it was integrated, easy to use, great for our members, and it would be an easier transition for us to have one workplace management system versus having two different systems. For the future of co-working, I'm super excited about the growth of our community. As people are moving away from traditional office space, they are coming to our spaces to work. And having a system like Yardi to enhance that member experience has really been great overall for the industry and the growth of our business.
All right, so we've talked a little bit about what your definitions of co-working were. Let's talk about the current state. So you've got, an organization like WeWork, which has got, corporate stores, if you will. You got Jason franchise models. You got mom and pops. Jason, I know you've got a lot of interest in this topic. Can you give us a little overview on the state of how the industry, the co-working industry state, is set up, and any evolving changes that you may be seeing right now?
Sure, Jim. I think on the base of it, you really have three separate models and really a few players doing one or two or all three of the three, right? So at the base level of it, you have the traditional lease model, again, which is rental arbitrage, which is really how the industry started before we had a lot of these other fancy terms. Meaning you had Regis, WeWork, our locations, VentureX. We went to a landlord, we leased their space, let's use simple math, $30 a square foot, and we try to lease it out to tenants at 70, 80, $90 a square foot and monetize that, right? So that's the traditional lease model. And then you came in with the hybrid model, more so like Industrious, where they're investing X amount of dollars and doing some form of managed service agreement or hybrid managed service agreement on the back end. And then you have complete 100% managed service agreements, which are really property management agreements. And again, I try to explain things in non-technical terms, even though I know your crowd is technical. My crowd is not as a franchisee, right, to the
Right, right.
industry terms. So, they're doing basically property management. So you buy a house, you hire a property manager to rent that out. You still pay the mortgage. You own the house. You fix the toilets. They just manage fixing the toilets and renting out the house.
All right.
So I think that kind of maybe overly simplifies the three models: traditional lease, some hybrid form in the middle, and then you have complete 100% managed service agreements. And you're seeing companies really kind of pick one of those modeling that they want to move forward with. I think Regis is hyper aggressive on the managed service side, Industrious, very aggressive on the hybrid side, and we've been pretty aggressive on the traditional lease model.
And then what about that owner, of a small portfolio, suburban office portfolio, isn't up releasing the property at the rate that they want to, so they figure out, let's take that first floor and put it up on one of these systems, these co-working systems that you can go find your space. Where do they fit into this?
I think more and more what you're seeing, Jim, is that they're realizing it's not their business. In the same instance that you live in a house, but trying to manage tenants, if you're just doing that one off, is not really the thing you're used to doing. That's why you hire a property management company. Also, the other problem is they have no reciprocity ecosystem or really good sales pitch, meaning there's no market that co-working is not in at this point, right? So if you have the option as a member, which every client does, are you going to join local mom and pop co-working, or just go to Regis, VentureX, Office Evolution, Industrious, which gives you some perks and benefits at other locations? So think about fitness centers. You're pretty much dominated at this point by Anytime Fitness, Planet Fitness, and Orange Theory, because if I could spend $10 at one gym and then spend 15 and have access to 1,000, why would I not do that? Even if I don't use it, even
Right.
if it's just a perceived value, why would I not go with the person that has the bigger ecosystem? So I think landlords don't have that great of a sales proposition, and then they have a struggle kind of recruiting people to run it. And it's not their business. If you're used to leasing 50,000 square feet, leasing 75 square feet times 50 for less money is not fun for them running the space. I think that's what we're seeing now happen to the mom and pops. Either they're getting out of it or just partnering with another
My
brand.
next question: do you see a consolidation of more acquisition consolidation, or they just go out of business? Where do you see that going?
Twofold. So, to my knowledge, again, and through GWA and other sources, at some point, Vast was one of the largest acquirers of existing mom and pop spaces, and we converted it to one of our three brands. Right. So we would take a mom and pop space and either convert it to a VentureX. The Yardi video that was just shared, Shannon Smith is one of my biggest franchisees. A bulk of his locations were existing co-working spaces that we've rebranded as VentureX. So yes, I mean, we are coming in and taking those spaces over and rebranding them as another concept. I think that's a significant path forward. What I see the future being, though, is similar to the way large developers look at hospitality today, right? So if you're building a mixed use development, you're going to reach out to Hilton or Marriott, and you're going to make a educated decision on which brand should be in that property. Should this be a residence inn? Should it be a courtyard? Is it family? Is it 3-star, 4-star, 5-star? And I think that's what the consumer is looking for, right? Is this a 3-star concept? Is it 4-star? Is it 5-star? Does this cater to on demand? Is it more private office? Is it glass? Is it drywall? So if I'm a therapist, you want a space that's drywall. You don't want the open glass concept.
Right.
So, I think once our industry comes up with its own rating system, the way hospitality did, it's going to be more accommodating to the general consumer to understand what they're getting. I like the fact that we're beyond the fluff metrics of we're going to change the world with office space. I'm not a very military, not a very fluff person. So I like 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, space, glass, no glass, like the true amenities you have.
Will, good to see you back. I'm assuming you had some, as they say on cable news, we had some technical difficulties.
Correct. Correct. Sorry
Or you
about
were
that.
closing a big deal, which is okay. That's fine. We're good with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so we're just kind of talking about the current state, but what I'd like to do is kind of jump into the future state. We were talking about the different models, the franchise, the corporate owned, the small little mom and pops. But what I would like to do is kind of put on your prognostication glasses and let's look 3, 5, maybe even 7 years out. Okay, because from our vantage point in dealing with technology at Realcomm and IBCon, we see what's happening specifically to the office world. And I'll kind of pose this question, but I want to go beyond this question. 5 years from now, what percent? Okay, you got a 50,000 square foot office building in Manhattan was traditionally, traditional or was a traditional office building. The last 15 years, all these changes with co-working have occurred. In 5 years, what percentage of that building will be traditional office, one tenant, everybody coming into work, versus flex space that's used in new, unimaginable ways? So, Jason, why don't you start?
I think we're going to go from 5 to 30%, right? I mean, I think right now the utilization is roughly about 5% is flexible. And it's not just me. I think JLL actually came out with the stat of going to 30%. I think that's the low side marker of that. I mean, if you would have asked, Silicon Valley investors what percentage of people would use taxi versus Uber, they probably would have given, I think McKinsey and, the big three would have said maybe 30-40% of people would have did
Not
this.
80 or 90, yeah.
It's just a better way of doing it, right? I don't know how to simplify it. So again, my opinion is biased, but if I were to tell you if CBRE, the world's largest commercial investment firm, spent $800 million this year, Will's employer spent $400 million of their money in May of last year. So if I would have told you one of the largest prop tech companies that keeps data on the industry spent 400, the largest investment firm spent 800 million, that 1.2 billion dollars has been bet on that. I think a 6x return on that investment is a logical thing that $1.2 billion would be spent on, or they would have put the money someplace else.
Someplace else, yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think if you're prognosticating and looking at a trajectory, I think that's a very sound argument. Well, future state. I mean, what is going on in these facilities 5 years? How are people? Where is AI playing into all this? How are people talking to each other, collaborating each other? Are they doing email sitting in glass offices in 5 years? What's your vision of the future?
Big question. Look, at first I'd agree with Jason. I think it's going to be, who knows whether it's 30%, doesn't matter, multiples of what it is today. And I think that comes from an evolution of what this flexible space is, right? We work with a lot of traditional commercial owner operators, developers, and they're all trying to introduce, not co-working because there's still some challenges around pro forma, but, spec suite or market ready suite programs that are leased on flexible terms, or frankly, sometimes even licensed, which starts to look like co-working. They have amenity centers which operate like co-working facilities. And then they might have traditional co-working or business service centers, which are co-working under another name. So I think that's how we get to those high percentages. It may not be in, let's Google a co-working location, bang, it makes up this percentage of this building, but flexible products are already growing, and I think actually larger than the percentage that co-working makes up of our market today. So it's there. And why do we feel confident about that indicator? It's the GSA moving all of their employees into flexible spaces. It's the T-Mobile and the story of 12 to 4 million square feet reduction, pushing people into flex. We feel really confident about that because people have to have somewhere to go. But your question around what are they doing there? How do they get into it? There are some really systemic challenges today of people getting into space. I mean, Jason mentioned up front, you just want to Google that product, book it, and go use it. We just can't do that today, particularly right. For this variety of spaces that are sitting behind locked doors. It just doesn't happen. So, if I think with my Yardi technology hat on, we are trying to get gated users of corporate employees who now have this new use and new options within space we need one to connect them to the network of those spaces. So we need to get that availability and deliver it to the people who need it. We also have to network the retail consumer. When you Google that thing, how do you get access to it? Can you go into that traditional office building and use their amenity center? It doesn't matter that it's not run as a co-working location. It is a flexible office product that you should have access to. Yep. And then how do we get people moving between these portfolios? So to us, it really comes down to this need for, a inventory kind of data lake that is responsible and reliable behind the scenes, that says Jason can connect his, family of brands to one another very seamlessly from an availability, pricing, and billing perspective. But similarly, when someone from a Tishman Speyer building in New York goes to one of Jason's suburban markets, we want them to be able to connect into that network and get in there. It's about increasing the size of the booking consumer pool. Right. There's just not enough people who are going on Google and typing co-working, but there are many, many multitudes of that out there that need this space and just don't have a way to access it. So
do we end up with an Uber and a Lyft, 2 or 3 major players, or is this continue to be a network of small, medium, and large?
No, I mean, I'll answer this, and I know Jason has a strong view on it, but I think there is going to be a couple of major players because, one, it's difficult. It's not Uber getting a car to sign up. It's getting an office building that has a lot of physical and existing system constraints. So it's hard. And two, it's very diverse. Like, this is a global use case, not just, let's get New York sorted. So I think there will be, with the trust, the reach, and the data and technology capabilities, there's going to end up being a couple of players in this space. And I think Yardi firmly is stating that we want to be one of those players between our technical and, operating capabilities now with our relationship with WeWork.
Jason?
I think, Jim, I'd like to speak on 2 topics. One, I'll answer this piece first, and I'd like to kind of answer the AI question as well. But I think this industry is running in parallel, just 25, 30 years behind hospitality, in the sense that, yes, that happened, right? I mean, Starwood was acquired by Marriott, and all of a sudden your Starwood points are now Marriott Bonvoy points. And I think you've seen a consolidation because you want to be a Bonvoy member. I want, sometimes I want to stay at, the W or the St. Regis or the Four Seasons. I want my points to count. And if that doesn't happen, I think there's only one other logical scenario, which is another analogy, which is the One World Alliance and the Star Alliance, right? So American Airlines did not build a hub in London. They partnered with British Airways, right? Or I believe that's whatever the airlines they partnered with. You guys get the analogy, right? So yep. I can book on American and it's operated by fill in the blank airline, and they share best practices. So it's going to be one of those 2 things as a path forward. And that's where I think you get landlords more on board with consistency, quality, and kind of fallback kind of resources. And more importantly, sharing of the clients amongst each other is necessary to increase the revenue per square foot, right? That's, to me, kind of one of the main.
That revenue per square foot, to me, is the absolute most important metric from a business standpoint.
I mean, you could boil it down, but I'm going to answer why I think where AI is going to come in. And I don't think it's in the same way you're saying. I think what you're referring to is the AI implementation from like an employee level, the people that may be in there. And I do think there's a lot of disruption that's happening there. I have officially made the switch that I probably use ChatGPT more than Google. Even like anything I would have Googled, I'm just putting it into ChatGPT instead.
Yep.
One of my employees sends me a long email. I just have ChatGPT summarize it. So, I'm still on the vanity side of ChatGPT, but I am a paid user now at this point. But I think what you're going to see is AI helping to maximize the revenue per square foot and minimize the cost per square foot. So there are platforms already, because you mentioned you have to cool and heat this space X amount of time. Well, hospitality has figured a lot of this out. There was a time you would walk into a hotel room until you put your key in, the lights didn't turn on.
Only in Asia. I saw it took forever for that to come to the United States.
I mean, the point is it's there and it exists, and I think that's what you're going to see. You walk through the grocery aisle, right, and the freezer section, no lights are on until you walk by, right? So those seem like small incremental changes. That's the bolt-on of AI. I think that you're going to see a hyper optimization of the buildings or the remodeling of those buildings.
That's what our IBCon, Realcomm and IBCon, we're going to spend 3 days next week or a week and a half drilling into that at a level of detail that not many other conversation or conferences do. I mean, I would like to say that we're at the forefront of that building optimization and have been for 15 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where you're going to see AI just kind of leaps and bounds, kind of improve those
We've,
metrics, just being able to
we've
have
actually got 17 AI case studies that we're going to be showcasing in Savannah. I mean,
yeah,
17 real estate companies have come up with innovative ideas, some on the building side, some on the enterprise operational side. But I'm amazed. We had 15 last year, and some of those are returning. But we're actually making some progress on the AI front in our own industry, which is very encouraging. So we're a little bit over time, but that's okay because this is a phenomenal conversation. I have one final question, and there's not two better guys to ask. We'll start with you, Will. Around the world, anywhere on the planet Earth, what is the most well-designed, innovative, most utilized, cool, fun, energetic, successful co-working location that you know of?
Wow, I think you could answer each one of those with a different
Only one.
response.
Only
And
one.
I'm jealous that Jason gets a second to think on this. I think the most innovative ones that I've seen are new build Class A and trophy assets that have a combination of traditionally leased space to backstop the economics of the building. They have spec suites. They have an amenity / co-working center where they can have both outside members come in and use the space on a frequent touchdown basis, or they can be overflow for the tenants in that building.
What's your take?
sure. So, of course, I have a biased answer for my first question. Then I'll give you a non-biased answer, right? So, if I had to pick in my ecosystem, my Venture X's in London are beautiful. I have one at a shopping center, White City. Domestically, it would be my Venture X in Lodo, and that's in Denver, which is just a beautiful space. You walk in, there's a video production studio. As a concept, though, one of my favorite people in the industry is Mark Dixon, the founder of Regis. Their number 18 brand. I'm a speakeasy person, right? I like kind of the old lounges, leather. I think, number 18, which is their limited kind of 5-star, 6-star kind of modeling, are all really, really cool. There's only a handful of them kind of around the world.
Particular subset of the brand, or is that one location?
NO.18. So like number 18 is a IWG brand. Again, a handful of locations, really cool markets, and it just looks like a Soho house mixed with a speakeasy, just this high-end kind of luxury leather design.
At the end of the day, people need to have the functionality of being able to work, privacy when they need it, collaboration when they need it, but the space has to feel right. And
It does.
it has to make people want to be there. And that's the challenge, because a lot of times that means it's expensive.
Yep. I think too, Jim, I know we're over on time here, but that was our modeling with having 3 separate brands that they look and feel different. And that's where I think hospitality got it right. And a lot of commercial real estate is getting wrong, right? I mean, again, I told you the analogy. Imagine if there was only a single Marriott, meaning there was no courtyard. Every one of their properties was just called the same thing. And I think that that's where operators are looking to do now is like, well, how do we make the suburban brand look different and feel different than the urban core brand? Well,
Right.
they should, right? I mean, you should have a little bit of creative and flexibility there, but
Well, in the urban brand, you may have young people walking in with their dogs, and in the suburban brand, you may have a guy bringing his 2 kids in to hang out while he gets some emails done, right? So,
but that makes it impossible for the consumer to understand, right? So it's like if you travel for business, you kind of know what you're going to get at a Courtyard by Marriott, right?
yep,
So it's like, you're going to have like a Starbucks in the lobby. It's mostly business professionals. A Residence Inn has kitchens, and they're going to have a lot of families in that.
yep,
Where I go to Raleigh, I have a lot of locations in the Raleigh market. There's a property where it's both in the same property. One side is Residence Inn, the other side is Courtyard.
exactly. Yeah, that's
So
good. Smart.
hospitality, if you go to AHOA, Asian American Hotel Association, they've done a great job of differentiating their hotel brands. And I think that's where commercial real estate has to get to.
So at the end of the day, we know that those boxes we built to work in 50, 60, some cases 70 years ago, kind of industrial revolution mentality, they were still moving forward with that concept. I think the pandemic was really the turning point, right?
100%.
Because it forced everybody who didn't want to be forced, from CEO to receptionist, to figure it out for 24 plus months. And still some people, we hear the headlines daily, They don't want to buy some New York major financial companies still fighting back. But at the end of the day, that 2 to 3 hour commute is very taxing on people. And if they're going to make that commute, you got to make it worth their while when they come into the city or whatever. And so I think the next 5, 10, 15 years, you're going to see this evolution from a business model from the 50s into the business model of the 2050, and a lot of opportunity
Yeah,
to
it's
play, experiment, work, and try to figure out this future.
yeah, it's taxi to Uber transition. No different than I guess the moniker you'd call it today is dumb phone to smartphone, right? It's like nobody knew they needed an iPhone or an Android. Like you just didn't even know you needed it, and then there's just no going back. It's like you could still get one if you wanted to, but it's why? Why are you doing this the old way?
Exactly. Well, I think we lost Jason or Will for good, which is unfortunately, but we got most of the great content he wanted to present. So I think we're in good shape. So I just want to say thank you to him and thank you to yourself for taking the time. And hopefully we get to do this again. And like I said, it's going to be a big topic at our conference in less than 10 days. And probably should get together on the other side and compare some notes. So thank you so much
Absolutely.
for your time today.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. Well, that wraps a great episode of Realcomm Live, and we're excited to take Realcomm Live to the conference. We're going to have a beautiful podcast studio set up on our main stage. So we're probably going to be capturing 30, 40, possibly even 50 different conversations that we'll be bringing to you throughout the year. And at this point, it's just way too much to keep up with, but we're doing our best. Hope you all have a great day, and hopefully we'll see you at Realcomm IBCon in Savannah. And if not, be well, and we'll see you soon.